Welcome back to the World Economic Forum in Davos. Ukraine is in the midst of a financial crisis. The country has a massive hole to plug in its budget, and emergency funding isn't coming as fast as the country needs. Speaking here at the World Economic Forum, the country's President Petro Poroshenko said they needed a financial pillow to carry out essential reforms. Now, that's expected to come in the form of a new IMF bailout. At the forefront of this crisis is Ukraine's Finance Minister, Natalie Jaresko. Thank you for joining us on France 24.
Thank you.
Let's start with that financial crisis. How bad is the situation in Ukraine's finances?
We have a strong financial crisis because we're dealing with three sets of problems. First, the war, which is costing us, unfortunately, in human lives, some 5,000 deaths, 650,000 internally displaced people, but also financially, $7 to $10 million per day. We're having to, unfortunately, pay for the electricity and gas and heating and not being reimbursed for that region. It's $1 billion, basically subsidized for the heating season. And we've lost 20% of the economy, so we are in a situation where it is not good. That said, aside from that, we also inherited a legacy of a corrupt regime previous to our new elections, and that regime added some $40 billion of debt to the balance sheet of the country. And finally, of course, for years we haven't had the pace of reforms that we should have to put the economy in a shape where it would be ready to take on such a difficult situation.
So you need help, you need money. How much money do you need?
There's no specific number, frankly speaking, and the number comes up from estimating different elements and forecasting a very difficult situation to forecast. The issue is that we need a substantial enough amount of money from our international partners, including the IMF, but not only, to be able to give confidence back to the marketplace, to be able to rebuild the reserves of the central bank, take care of our external payments, and give us a cushion, as the President said, to start the structural reforms, to continue the structural reforms that we have started already, and move forward. That number is less important than the fact that it's substantial, that it's timely, and that it's front-loaded, so that we can build this confidence now.
There's already a rescue package in place for Ukraine, but that money isn't all coming in, this 27 billion total. Where are you lacking money? Where's the money not coming from?
Well, there's $12 billion that's still under the old standby program with the IMF that hasn't been dispersed. It's not that it didn't come in, it's that it was scheduled for over the period of 15 and early 16. The crisis in the country has become worse with the onset of the war and the continuing recession. So basically it's an acceleration of that program, but we've now asked for a new program, a deeper program that will give us access to greater resources, an extended fund facility.
And why should countries that have already committed to pay money, the IMF says it's having difficulty attracting donors for Ukraine, why should those countries give more money to Ukraine?
Well, I think the issue is burden sharing. Ukraine is bearing the costs of the war, bearing the costs of defending Europe, bearing the costs of defending the principles upon which Europe has rested easily since World War II, the Helsinki principles, the territorial integrity and sovereignty principles. Ukraine is paying that cost in a very, very harsh way, again, with both human, territory, and finances. What we're asking is for our partners to support us, not to give us aid, but to support us with credits, with debt, so that we can get through this very difficult period. I don't think it's right to say that it's hard to raise the funds. I think the issue is, as always, every country has its own issues. We've already seen announcements of an additional $2 billion in credit guarantees from the US, 1.8 billion euro from the EU, an additional 500 million euro loan from Germany. Japan has announced a $300 million fiscal package. So we are raising the capital, the financial support that we need to see. The issue is moving forward more quickly.
I mean, that money will eventually have to be paid back that's coming from...
Exactly.
They are loans. Is Ukraine a safe investment?
Yes, I think that this is a temporary problem in Ukraine. This is a crisis that we will get through. We have the commitment of a government, a newly elected, democratically elected parliament, a democratically elected president, a coalition in the parliament that is a constitutional majority, and a new government that is absolutely ready and willing. Even more importantly than that, we have a civil society that has been through extraordinary difficulties for the last year, from the revolution, the Euromaidan, or the revolution of dignity as we call it, to this war. Ukrainians are demanding these reforms. Ukrainians want to see a European lifestyle. They want to see European principles of rule of law. They want to see anti-corruption. All of the things that we've started doing and that are ongoing right now are things that our society is demanding from us. There's no other choice.
But, of course, those reforms that need to be carried out won't be easy for people to deal with who've already suffered a lot: falling value of the currency, increasing gas prices. Will your government be strong enough to be able to get those reforms passed?
I think we will. I think that the adoption of the budget at the end of the year, as difficult as it was, with certain social safety net cuts, with an increase in communal tariffs written in, and with an increase in our spending on military and law enforcement, showed that the coalition in the parliament is capable and willing to support the government, its government, in these reforms. It will never be easy. These are difficult reforms. But I think society is ready more now than ever to see the changes that can only come from the adoption of these reforms.
And do you understand why there might be a lack of confidence in whether or not these reforms could be passed, and that could create difficulties for a new IMF deal?
I do see why there may be some feelings on the part of our partners that in the past 20 years promises have been made and perhaps not kept. But I think it's important to look at the actual actions rather than the promises. Already last year and this year we've implemented a series of reforms. We've eliminated the corruption, for example, in our trade, in our purchase and import of gas from Europe. All the middlemen, all of the intermediaries that were siphoning off hundreds of millions of dollars over the past 20 years have been removed. That is now a direct purchase between our state Naftogaz company, oil and gas company, with our European partners in the reverse flow of gas. That corruption is gone. Other reforms we've made, we've done budget decentralization. People have argued that we need to decentralize power. We've started that already. As of January 1st, we have a new budget system that enables not only tax collection at the local level, but also the responsibility for defining how to spend these tax revenues at the local level. We've eliminated a lot of the loopholes that existed previously for big business and vested interests in our tax system by adopting a transfer pricing policy, by eliminating the ability to move a lot of the profits offshore. These things are already done. We've on the anti-corruption side, we've created an anti-corruption bureau, which is a strong law enforcement agency, and an anti-corruption agency, which is an entity that will look at preventative measures to start moving forward in a very, very specific way.
So you say you're making those reforms, they should restore confidence to your investors. What do you want now from your partners? What do you want from the European Union? What do you want from the United States?
Well, we need their financial support, as I said, now, coupling it with the IMF program. I hope that we will come to agreement with the IMF on this new extended fund facility in the next days, and then be able to move towards a final agreement adopted by the IMF and funded before the end of February.
Of course, we had the association agreement with the European Union signed last year. What sort of benefits has that brought for Ukraine?
One, unilateral trade has been opened for Ukrainian products, and we have increased our trade to the European Union significantly in 2013. Two, we're looking forward to moving forward along the visa liberalization side. We've already introduced our biometric passports, one of the conditions for that, and that's something that is a very tangible plus for our population. It doesn't mean that people will automatically travel given the unfortunate economic situation, but it does mean that they'll have that ability. They'll have the ability to think about it, to dream about it, to save for it, and that's very important. People died on the streets of Ukraine defending their European path, defending European values, and that's one of the things they'd like to see happen in the near future.
And why is it important for you that that support comes from the West and not from elsewhere?
It's a global support. It's not just the West. Japan, as I said, is already committed. Australia we are in talks with Australia. It's from Canada to Australia. It's not about East or West. It's about those who support a sovereign, integral country in Europe.
You sparked some flurry on the bond markets earlier this week when you hinted that there would be talks with sovereign bondholders after a new IMF deal. Does that mean a haircut for those investors? Should they be worried? It's
too early to talk about what it means. What I've said is that we will enter into consultations with our sovereign debt holders, and that's what our intention is. We're looking to seek medium-term debt sustainability. Debt sustainability is made up of GDP, of the level of debt, of the term of debt. There are lots of pieces to the puzzle. So first we need to talk with the IMF, and then we need to consult with our creditors.
Those people that are lending you money, when would you see that money being able to be paid back?
Again, that's part of the discussions that we'll have with them, and it's a consultation. We'll be seeking their perspective as well as giving them ours.
Petro Poroshenko has spoken about improving the climate for investment. Ukraine has been described as one of the worst places in the world to do business. What can you do to change that?
Well, we are already changing it, both in the sense of deregulation. We're working to eliminate all of the different regulations that hamper business, that make it harder for business to happen. In the anti-corruption side and in judicial reform, which has been introduced into Parliament by our President already, ensuring an effective and independent judiciary is probably one of the most important things, rule of law for business. They want to be able to have fairness, justice when they have a problem. I think the third thing is stability. One of the things that my job entails is seeking stability, both fiscal and banking stability. An important part of any business sector is a strong banking sector. So all of these elements are things that are going to improve the business climate and attract investors over time.
And we'll watch and see what the effect of that is. Natalie Jaresko, Ukraine's finance minister, thank you for speaking to us on France 24. Do stay with us. Plenty more news coming up.